You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Welcome. I'm here today with guest sidekick Mikey. Hey, Mikey, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And as always, Ashley is here. Hey, Ashley.
Hey.
You surviving the deep freeze up there?
Yes, barely.
She's in Minnesota, for anyone who...
Oh, dear God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know. And I left. I got out a few years ago. And I'm in California now. And I have a cold. And the best thing about living in California is I'm sitting here with my tea. And I got to just walk outside and pluck a lemon off a bush for my tea this morning. I love California.
Thanks for signaling your privilege there.
You're welcome.
The rest of us appreciate it.
Although people are like, why do you want to live there? There's so much taxes. It's so expensive. Well, this is why. You pay to be able to walk out and pluck a lemon off a bush.
Well, apparently the warm weather didn't help if you got a cold. So, just saying.
I know. Well, that is a myth. That's an unscientific myth that cold weather causes
We're all about
colds.
Superstition here, right? We're
Right.
all about mysticism. So that's what I'm pushing.
That's why you're here,
Thanks for
Mikey,
having me.
because I know that you're particularly good at that. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about Google, Facebook, Twitter, shadow banning, other nefarious practices and what to do about it. We're going to talk about the Aziz Ansari story. He was accused of, I'm not sure what we're going to call it, being ungentlemanly. That's what he was accused of. We'll talk about a new movement, the liberalist movement. Ooh. And we have no guest today because the guy I booked, Steven Cruiser, just dropped off the face of the earth and texted me at the last minute, kind of that he wasn't really available. I'm like, fine, okay. I gathered that. Now I'm prepared to do the show without you. Thanks very much.
We'll have a blast. We'll have a blast.
We are going to have a blast. We've got three of us. And that's all you need. You can call the show. Company. Yeah. 4 is a crowd. Too much. See, we're convincing ourselves we're actually better off. All right. You can call the show and leave a voice message at 707-681-5834. We're going to do a new thing starting next week. I want you to call in and tell a joke on the voice message, and we'll play them on the podcast, even the bad ones. So call that number, 707-681-5834, and tell me a joke. So let's just dive into it. We can talk about Facebook and YouTube. There have been a lot of requests for me to explain what's going on my Facebook and my YouTube. I'm definitely thinking I'm being, I don't know if you call it shadow banning when somebody, when the platform is bleeding likes from you at kind of a slow, almost unrecognizable pace. But this has been proven to happen to other people. And it is happening to me. And when I look at the details of where these are people who are choosing not to like my page any longer. So they're unliking my page. So my followers basically on Facebook are going down at a trickle. Like it's just kind of a trickle. And I did a little experiment where I spiked my likes. I got a bunch of people to, a bunch of my friends who hadn't liked my page to like my page. And on that day, the spike in unlikes occurred also simultaneously. And when I researched those unlikes, they're Facebook generated.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So there are two kinds of unlikes. You can get these organic unlikes where someone unlikes you from their newsfeed or goes over to your page and unlikes you. And that's one category. And you can see they break it down. They tell you which is which. The other kind of unlike, Facebook has done it, and they say, it could be a fake account or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But they say, or, this or that, or, it could be any number of things. And they don't tell you specifically what it is, but those are the two categories that they tell you. And all of them are the Facebook generated ones. So I'm going to do the experiment again and see if I can replicate it because I'm a scientist. We're sciencey
So we're going to do
here.
a scientific experiment here? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You have all your variables controlled and everything?
That's right.
Okay. Good.
And double blind. No, I don't even know what that means. I just know.
Self-reporting.
Right. So, but I was reading online that there are other people who have proven that this has happened to them, and on Twitter and on Facebook and stuff. So it's definitely a thing. And I'm like small potatoes, but I noticed when I started kind of getting back into posting on my page in September, I started posting regularly. And the entire history I've been on Facebook, posting regularly gets me just kind of like more likes, like not a lot. Sometimes something will get shared and I'll get like a flood of likes. But just posting a little bit, just if you kind of post regularly, you get a certain percentage of likes. I think it's probably a percentage of your total. And the more you have, the more you would get doing that. But that's been the whole history. And then this time it was weird. It was like I was getting those same number of likes, but I was getting a lot of unlikes at the same time. And so net, I wasn't moving. Like I was just staying the same. My following was not growing. It was just stagnating. And after this started when I started posting more. It didn't start before that. It started when I started posting more. So then I looked into it. Like I'm looking at my analytics and I'm going, these are all Facebook generated, or not all of them, but most of them, 75% of them. So then I ran that experiment. And then I was reading online that it happens to other people. And I'm like, it'd be very easy to just electronically add me to a list where as I get likes, they take a few from me. If I get a few, they take a few. And
you gotta keep that wrong think under control, right?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to, these organizations. But I'm going to replicate the experiment, and then we'll see. But I do think it's happening.
I mean, I've found that whenever anyone says I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but usually a conspiracy theory follows. I think that in my history of managing, pages, there's always a ton of Facebook generated dislikes. But we know that Facebook is even more of a big brother, quote unquote, than Twitter. So I would not be surprised if, they're trying to police the wrong think and trying to minimize the reach of ideas that are unpalatable.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if you ever ran ads and got like a bunch of likes, like from click farms in Southeast Asia. I know that can also.
No, see, that's the thing. I have never run ads ever. And I've grown so slowly. And if you look at like where my likes are, I don't have likes from Egypt. I don't have likes from, I only have like United States and some European countries. Like it's really limited. And a lot of those European likes came when I could point to specific videos being shared at blogs overseas. And then all of a sudden I'd get a flood from Norway or something because some blog over there posted it. So I knew that I really believe that my community was real, And it's been consistently that way for years. And then all of a sudden this has changed where, all of a sudden I'm getting all these unlikes. So I don't know. I'm suspicious. Well, and like I said, I'll replicate the experiment don't you think it's suspicious, Mikey, that with the spike in likes came a spike in unlikes?
I mean, I think it's absolutely suspicious. And given what we know about, things at places like Twitter, YouTube, Google rather, and then Facebook, and how their internal policies are. I'm not surprised at all that they would be trying. But, maybe you have content that was reviewed by an algorithm and then verified by their independent fact checkers, right, quote unquote, and flagged as being, offensive, whatever other anti-concepts that they throw at you. And then,
someone ran across me or an algorithm ran across me and maybe I've been put on a list or something. A shadow banning blacklist of some kind.
It could also be maybe equally malicious, but less ideological in the sense that they are continually trying to get pages to pay money for ads,
right? And
so maybe everybody is just losing likes, so you feel compelled to give them money. So that also could be, evil, greedy corporation.
That could be. I haven't heard anybody else complaining about it, but of course, coming up, they're making a really big change where pages aren't even going to get seen.
Yep.
And so that has made me rethink like my whole strategy because I'm not going to pay Facebook. I'm not going to do it.
Billion digital marketers cried out in anguish and were silenced immediately.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm a big money bags with a huge following. No, I'm just kidding. And where do you go? I mean, I'm kind of not really on Twitter. Twitter does it anyway. So why should I build a following there and end up in the same boat? I'm on YouTube primarily. Like that's where my fans mostly are. They subscribe to my YouTube channel. And so I am active on Facebook on my page. For those of you out there listening, that's probably the number one place that I post stuff. But, because you can't post quippy stuff on YouTube. But I'm thinking I'm going to move to Instagram, but that's also Facebook. So
Yep.
I don't really know. There's Gab. I've been getting a lot of I get notifications when I get followers on Gab, and that's increased. Something's going on over there.
I've never heard of Gab.
Oh.
Yeah, what's Gab?
Well, so there you go. I'm not moving to Gab because you don't even know what it is, and you're in this business.
Glad we can. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad we can inform that decision for you.
So, Mikey, what do you think? What do you think? You're in. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Mikey's business. Like he does digital marketing.
I mean, for you, I think that you can get around the Instagram, being owned by Facebook because, when you create an account, it's just treated like an account. It won't be differentiated between a page versus a personal account. So automatically you get around that wheelhouse. And also I think that building an audience and consistency and focusing on quality of content on Instagram, especially for what you're trying to do would be, I think you could probably grow an audience pretty quickly. And, obviously you could utilize stories and the like. So, it might be a good idea. I think Facebook is becoming increasingly less ideal for the kind of stuff that you're doing.
I think it is too.
Unless maybe you wanted to go live a lot. Like basically they're pushing Facebook video and then mostly Facebook live. And if you're not doing that, I was going to
do this podcast live and I was going to do some other live stuff. But I don't know. I mean, Instagram is pretty good for video too.
Yeah.
There are other, I can do YouTube live.
YouTube and Instagram, I think, are probably two good bets.
Yeah. That's where the kids are, right?
Yeah, it's all. Yep.
I want the kids to pay attention to me. So
the audience of Facebook is always every day is getting older and older and older as kids abandon it in droves. So if you want the youngins, Facebook is not the place to put all your eggs.
Is Snapchat still a thing?
Yeah, it's still a thing. I personally am not a fan, but I think there's a lot of companies that use it to great effect. Like you see, Disney and all of these huge corporations, having great stories. But I don't think it's worth the juice is not worth the squeeze. But what do I know?
Ashley's an Instagrammer. She likes Instagram. Mikey, what do you like? What's your favorite?
I mean, I think for the kind of stuff that we're talking about here, Instagram, it all depends on, what you're selling and who your audience is. Yeah. But I think that, Instagram is and I'm a fan of Twitch if you have regular content and you're a streamer. And I think YouTube, despite the demonetization, I think that, that there is a good system there for good quality people to get seen. So,
well, that's the other thing. YouTube, so all I'm doing right now are these podcasts and they're audio, they're not even video. And that's the only thing I've been putting up on my YouTube channel recently. And once I hit the upload button, they're instantly demonetized. So, and I realize that I swear, or I might talk about something somewhat controversial, but really this show is pretty suitable for work. I mean, it should be suitable for advertisers, but for some reason I'm getting flagged and then I have to request a review. And I would say half the time the review comes back where they monetize it again. But by then it's over. I've already, days and days, maybe weeks later, it's okay, that didn't do me any good. But I've never made money on YouTube. I've never, ever made money on YouTube. So it's not like I was counting on that or something.
If you even look at one of my favorite YouTubers, it's called the Report of the Week, and he's just some kid that reviews fast food, and it's the most innocuous videos. He's really polite, and his videos are getting demonetized too. So everybody's feeling not even politically charged content.
No, this isn't political. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm being targeted for politics on YouTube. It's just this adpocalypse thing has caused them to become ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
So, And related to the Google thing, just we can segue into this Damore lawsuit, which we have yet to talk about here on the podcast. But the interesting thing, I don't know if you saw this, Mikey, that came out. Did you read the different evidence that he presented in his lawsuit?
Yeah, I saw some of the top lines.
Yeah. So this is insane. I guess I should give a little bit of background. You guys, my audience probably knows who James Damore is. He was fired from Google for being a white man. I'm just kidding. For writing an essay that was, what would you call that? Like, just not diversity friendly, maybe?
Yeah, it was like highlighting why they shouldn't have their diversity policies, which is basically begging to get canned from a place like Google.
Well, who knew Google was so bad? I didn't. I mean, I knew that they were doing things like manipulating their search and things like that, and they're obviously very lefty, and they were pro-Hillary and all of that, and it's unfortunate that they're tainting their product like that. Prior to all of this, I thought Google was like an organic search, and now I don't believe that it is. You know,
I mean, my thing about Google's always been, if your mantra is "don't be evil," then you're probably evil if you feel the need to remind yourself over and over. So.
You have to. It's like, yeah, we all hang things on our walls. Like you might hang a little phrase on your wall to like give you a little bit of motivation, remind you of something you need to do. And theirs is "don't be evil."
Yeah, I was gonna be evil today, but because that's our company motto, we may not be evil. Like,
I looked at the motto, and now I'm going to restrain myself. Yeah. And they have like over and so I'm going to just talk about some of these things that the evidence. So he's suing Google for, firing him against California law, and he probably has a case. But just reading some of the evidence, some of this is so shocking to me. And, some of it's not, but it's still like, it's good to see what's going on there. But, he comes out with this document, this internal document, which gets leaked to the press, and then he's fired in this very public, awful way. And he was getting messages inside the company. Like, here's a quote from somebody. He got an email. "You're a misogynist and a terrible person. I will keep hounding you until one of us is fired. F you."
Wow.
Hey.
And he's got a couple more like that. And then he was told, "Why don't you go work at home for a while?" Like, the person who sent that email wasn't told to go work at home.
Oh, no.
He was told to go work at home.
I mean, like, petulant rage is usually like a badge of honor for progressives and leftists. So I'm sure he was probably got a spot bonus.
Yeah. Right. There's this thing where they give out these peer rewards, and people were given peer rewards for hating on James Damore, and he has evidence of that. And then then there was another one, another email he got. "If you keep talking about this shit, I will hurt you."
What?
Yes.
I want to be surprised. I want to be shocked and appalled so badly, but I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
So here's one that really shocked me. One of the managers proposed creating, this is in the evidence of the lawsuit. One of the managers proposed creating a list she would personally manage of, quote, "people who make diversity difficult," end quote, to include employees who did things like make statements, quote, "unsupportive of diversity," end quote. She suggested the list could serve as a punishment that could incentivize better behavior among the offenders listed. And here's another quote. "Things I'm still pondering. Should inclusion on the list require something resembling a trial? Should people be removed after some period of time if they start behaving?" She freaking said that in writing. A manager. A trial, an internal trial if you don't have the same thoughts as the rest of us.
Wrong think can destroy a company.
What the F? Oh my God. And then the best thing, this is hilarious, and this is why I know Google is dead. You don't need to sue them. They don't need to be sued for antitrust. This is the funniest thing. In a section claiming Google tries to stifle conservative parenting styles, the suit reads, "Google furnishes a large number of internal mailing lists catering to employees with alternative lifestyles, including furries, polygamy, transgenderism, and plurality for the purpose of discussing sexual topics. The only lifestyle that seems to be not openly discussed is traditional heterosexual monogamy. For example, an employee who sexually identifies as a yellow-scaled wingless dragonkin and an expansive ornate building. He's a plurality person, whatever that means. He identifies, let me just repeat this. He identifies as a yellow-scaled wingless dragon and a building.
At the same time.
Yes.
Is the dragon in the building? Is it a building shaped like a scaled dragon? I'm trying to get a visual image. It's probably a mistake.
I don't think you can actually visualize this. Okay, so he presented a talk entitled Living as a Plural Being at an Internal Company Event. Living as a plural being. Living as a dragon in a building. So you'd have to go to that talk to understand it, Mikey, I think.
Wait, I thought this was like just a straw man joke. Like that's actually seriously that happened?
Yes, this is in the lawsuit.
Yeah, are you sure it's not an Onion article?
I know. I mean, this is why
this is the future we chose, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. But this is going on inside that company. Anyone of value is running out of that company. They don't need to be told to run. If that's going on, you're getting out. And so, I mean, it's just inevitable that Google's going to collapse because it's a competitive world out there. And now people are suing them for antitrust and things. And I think that's wrong because if they win, if you actually start regulating this industry in that way, you will prevent their competitors from emerging. So the last thing we need is the government stepping in here. We need it free. We need it open and competitive. And that way, these guys are just going to collapse under their own plural building. Right? And this is ridiculous.
I think it's funny that the thing that they're actually getting sued for and actually getting criticized for is the value that they're creating. And that's the problem. It's not like this 1984 groupthink that they're forcing all of the brilliant people out of their company. I guess to be fair, like for things like Twitter and Facebook and Google, I do kind of ask these people who are conservative, like, what are you thinking going to work for a place like that where you're going into the lion's den, and like even if you whisper, a thought that goes against it, you'll be, the mob will come after you. So I mean, it's kind of. I feel for them, and it's obviously horrible. But I wonder, like, what are these people thinking when they go join these companies with these very explicit cultures?
Well, I would say that any large corporation has that kind of culture now, and people don't really realize that. I was fired from. I didn't have a job, but I was a contractor management consultant, and I was working for Wells Fargo, and my contract was 1 year. And I was 1 week away from the end of my contract. My goodbye lunch was scheduled. Everything, I had a great relationship with them. 1 week before, a guy that I worked with came over to my desk and said something to me about wearing underwear on my head and was laughing. And then I knew he found my video. The video where I wear the hijab and I have underwear on my head, and I'm basically I'm making fun of people who accept this hijab as something we need to embrace and support. And he thought it was really funny, and I said, "Oh no, oh shit, you didn't tell anybody, did you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I showed it to everybody." And I'm like, "Uh-oh!" And the next day, I was told to leave. So, and I was given an excuse of budgeting. Like they didn't actually even have the nerve to say to me, "It's because you're a freaking video and you're like a racist." And so, which I'm not, but you can't come out in support of Muslim female rights, or you're a racist apparently. Like Ayan Hirsi Ali. So anyway, my boss was super lefty. I mean, he was hard left, and he was open and righteous about it all the time, and you just had to like ignore it,
Uh-huh.
And anyway, when he saw that, he was done with me. So that's Wells Fargo. I mean, that's not Google. That's not Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that's true.
And these companies are the CEOs, the managers are pretty much doing political pulse stuff all the time. Politics is everything. Multiculturalism and diversity is everything within these cultures. And it's a very stifling environment. I've never liked working in large corporations. So Silicon Valley is probably worse because people are all, they're just dicks.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, I think that maybe there might be some corporations that would just stay mostly apolitical, and you don't need to go be an activist for progressive ideals, and even if you kind of whisper that you're kind of a conservative, you don't immediately get fired. But I agree that that's probably very rare. You got to get lucky to find something like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the 80-20 rule. We're definitely in a culture that's left. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of these corporations survive. Once you get to a certain size, you have to be government oriented. And as a result, the kind of people who rise to the top are those who can navigate that well. And they're not the kind of people who support conservative thinking or, any kind of thinking, really. And there was an exception. I mean, Apple was an exception under Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah.
But then he died. So.
Yep. Yeah. And we've seen the changes. So just in their products, their public facing changes since that happened, and I can't imagine what it's like behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing Tim Cook did, his first act, was to give charity, which was a Steve Jobs rule, was my company doesn't give to charity. That was a big rule. And he fought against the board and always trying to do that, and he's like, no, we're not doing that. They didn't take political stances. They didn't give to charity. The first act Tim Cook did was open that charity thing up and give to charity.
And I'm sure he got a standing ovation.
Yeah. And then a week later, he was sitting next to Obama at some sitting next to Michelle Obama at the State of the Union or something like that. The guy is a total lefty.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this lawsuit is interesting. And the only thing about it is wrong to sue Google for antitrust. But it will be interesting to see what comes out of in this employment one. I kind of agree with. And I know that there are some people who think, well, even these employment laws are bad because a company has the right to hire and fire people. But the law is that you can't discriminate. And if we don't fight back against discrimination against this group, but, we allow people to fight for the other groups. I mean, I think it's wrong to just lay down and let this happen. And the discovery that's going to come out of this is going to be really interesting.
And I mean, I guess the difficulty is that, how do you tell people to vote with their wallets when it's just, Google has dominated and taken over completely? I think that's also the difficulty as well.
It is tough, but I also believe that it's just going to take time. I mean, MySpace was a thing once.
Yeah, true.
And these online companies can disappear in almost an instant. And the second somebody does the job that Google's doing, the second we can move, they're going to see a huge exodus. And I know there are other searches. I tried to use DuckDuckGo for a while, especially because I like that it doesn't keep your data. But that search sucks. I mean, I ended up, I was trying to use both. When I really had to, I would go use Google, but I would use DuckDuckGo for the most part. And I got so frustrated, I'm back at Google.
I mean, that's also kind of the catch-22, right? Is that they offer a superior product and the payment that we give them is our information.
Right.
We sacrifice our privacy for the ease of use of their product. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because I don't know if you saw that, was it Project Veritas video or something where they were talking to a bunch of Twitter people behind the scenes, and they were talking about how they harvest all this data, they're looking at DMs, and they were all joking about how they're not even close to as Big Brother and as scary and maniacal as Facebook and Google. And so all of these staffers at Twitter who are talking about all of the stuff that private data that they can see are saying that they're not even close. So that's just think about what they have on all of us.
Yeah, I've tried really hard not to have intimate conversations on messaging.
That's smart.
I regard it as, but I do send emails through Google. And a lot of those emails are private. Like I send emails to my doctor through Google. So I can probably get a new email and do something different there. And I probably should do that.
You can always go back to AOL. No one's looking at that. Nobody's looking at AOL.
Nobody's looking. Can I also get dial-up while I'm at it?
I'm sure you
I kind of miss that. You've got mail.
I'm sure there's a YouTube video of that on infinite loop, 10-hour loop that you could probably find just to really kind of get your immersion back from the
just
early 2000s.
Just to be nostalgic. Yeah. I love those times.
It's good stuff.
It's funny how excited we were to get online, period. And now that would literally make me commit suicide. I mean, I would be like, I literally would be killing myself if I had to wait like that. So yeah, it's funny that I'm planning to move to a Facebook platform from Facebook because I'm mad at Facebook, but whatever. Okay. That's just the world. I'm hoping that we should check out Gab. I'm going to check out Gab because I keep getting these notifications that I have 10 new followers at Gab. I'm like, what is this? I set up an account. I don't even remember what it is, but I'll check it out. It's just like,
never heard of it. Sorry.
I'm on Patreon now, and I also simultaneously set up a Hatreon account because I heard about Hatreon.
Sounds reasonable.
Because at the time, Patreon was blacklisting people and kicking people off, and you go to all this trouble to get people to support you, and then you lose them. And the only reason why, when that was going on, that I went with Patreon is that I found out that I could get the emails of the people. So if something did happen and they kicked me out, I've got everybody's email. I can just try to reconstruct it. But I simultaneously started an account at Hatreon, and a year from now, I'll forget about it. And then suddenly people will start donating to me over there.
That sounds like always the next big new digital marketing thing, the digital platform. It's like everyone does it for a week. They all make their accounts. They forget about it instantly.
I know. I probably have 10 other social media accounts out there I don't even know. Like Vine.
Yeah, remember Vine? God, that was good times.
And a flash in the pan. Nothing has ever come and gone so fast. All right, let's talk about Aziz Ansari. So, just a little background here. Aziz Ansari, because people don't know who he is, it's weird. He's like an A-list comedian, everybody. Get with your comedy. He is, I would say he's A-list. I mean, he's not Seinfeld, but he's A-list. He does stand-up in huge, huge arenas. He's on hit TV show after hit TV show. He was on Parks and Recs. He's a funny, funny guy. He is now on a hit Netflix show that I personally don't think is that great, but whatever, it's a hit. And he's a lefty, but we can still be sympathetic because so this woman comes out and shame on the publication that published this because it's just gross that anybody even published this. She comes out with this, minute by minute, play by play of a bad date she went on with Aziz Ansari. And the bad date ended up with some sexual contact that was consensual, but made the girl feel like a slut because she was one. And now she's like, I don't even know what she's calling this, but inappropriate sexual behavior, which by the way, it's not. I mean, is it ungentlemanly? Is it, is it icky? Yeah, a little bit. But
absolutely.
I don't, this kind of happens a lot. This is like the hookup culture. I don't think there are many women who haven't experienced this within that, especially that generation, because his generation is that millennial hookup culture. That's yours. By the way, Ashley and Mikey are both millennials. Aren't you guys?
Oh, yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm the old
Tinder generation.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm not.
Ashley's a little older than that, I guess.
Yeah. I'm on the edge. Like, I don't know where I belong.
You're confused.
Yeah. Always.
Well, good for you. Good for you. You missed out. You missed it. You should be appreciative of that.
Ashley's probably like thanking God that she's not a millennial. She is a millennial, but not a full blown millennial.
Yeah.
So anyway, the account is she goes out on this date. She says she was feeling uncomfortable. She resisted a little bit, but then went along with it. And then, when it was over, he like wanted to cuddle and watch TV, which they did. And then she left and was in tears in her car, she says. And then he texts her the next day and says, hey, it was really nice meeting you. You want to go out again? And she's like, no, I felt uncomfortable. I mean, like, he's even asking her out again. He didn't even like think of it as a one night stand. He was like, that was great. I want to see her again. And she's like, no, that was horrible. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And that was the end of it until fast forward. And now she's trying to ruin his career and get some 15 minutes of fame for herself. Although I take that back. She's doing this anonymously, the coward.
Yep.
Nobody even knows her name except the journalist that quote unquote broke the story that Aziz Ansari had sex with a woman who wasn't exactly happy about it at one time.
I mean, isn't that just the walk of shame? Don't we all do that?
Speak for yourself, Ashley. I don't.
Oh, sorry.
No comment.
No comment. We're not.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened. I didn't read the story, but I mean,
well, sexual contact. They got naked. I'm not going to get into it too much. I mean, you can just Google this and read it. It's really just. It is a gross. I don't even know. It's. From her perspective, it's kind of sad because she wasn't into it. And she did it anyway, probably because he was famous. And, he's a guy who wants to have sex with her. And when you go on a date, a lot of times a guy wants to have sex with you after. And it's kind of up to you to be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And if you agree, that's kind of on you. But it's not that unusual for a guy to try to have sex with a woman on a first date, especially in the millennial generation.
And I mean, isn't his entire character, like his entire shtick is I love having sex with women? Isn't like that literally all he does?
Yeah, it's kind of one of his main, that's a really good point. His main stand-up stuff is like, I was trying to get with this chick. And, he's like a nerd. So it's like this nerdy guy trying to meet a woman, have sex, get with chicks. It's like his whole thing.
And so, I mean, there's that. And I think the strangest part of the article is in the beginning. It sets the tone, I think, for the whole piece, where she gets to his apartment before the date and she wanted red wine, but all he had was white. And he didn't care that she preferred red wine and served her white wine.
What
very
a
tragic.
Dick.
What an ass. He was just a horrible guy.
Horrible guy. Why doesn't he have red in his wine cabinet? What kind of person?
Unbelievable. And so, I mean, it's obviously, it sounds like he was completely oblivious and is not able to read cues. But I think.
But who says even that she put out those cues? I mean, she may have been thinking that in her head, but outwardly, maybe she wasn't expressing that even in a body language kind of way. I mean, she ended up having sex with him. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of and like they tell this huge account, right? And all of the parts that she says, like where she does do things with him that she consented to or whatever at the time, it says like, and then she agreed, and then she did it, and then it's glossed over, and then all of the other parts are like, in the most flowery, gross, most humiliating ways. And I mean, it really is just the intention is a public humiliation.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's the thing. I'm all for, exposing people like Weinstein and people who are like predators. But when you do things like this, like I had a bad date and I'm going to publicly humiliate them, you're diminishing like the real bad, like, the movement against the real bad guys and the people who are committing horrible acts. And that to me is like the most alarming thing.
That's true. I mean, I think people are going to hesitate to want to, how do you support a movement that is humiliating people who didn't do anything wrong, really? I mean, he did not abuse or assault this woman. He just wasn't, it wasn't good. Like, he just wasn't a good date. And that's just sad and like, ugh, it's just gross. Mm-hmm. I can't even believe it was published because it's just somebody's firsthand account of Aziz being awkward and kind of like one of those gross guys that's just really trying to have sex with a girl who's a little hesitant. And that's just kind of gross and not very gentlemanly. And, but it happens a lot and it's not abuse. And when do women take responsibility? I mean, there has to be, it has to be it has to be a real crime, or we are crossing into that territory where you really do delegitimize what's happened in the culture recently, where people are standing up and saying, we're not going to put up with this in the workplace.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing. It's like you have all these instances where it's like Louis C.K. or whatever, where maybe they said yes, but they were in the same field and position of power, and like this is just they weren't even in the same field. They had the same camera, and it was just a Tinder date. And I think was it the Atlantic that put out an article that used a really good phrasing that basically like in this movement to burn it all down and bring it all down, like the bad guy is great, but like the conflagration, I think is the word that they used, like is basically consuming people that haven't done anything, or, maybe there's been an awkward date or a bad date. And so when there's this idea that like, well, where we accept that you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet, where does it end? And like, when do we just completely throw out justice in that?
Yeah. And not just justice, but they're creating an environment where men and women can't actually interact on any romantic level at all. And that is freaking creepy. That really creeps me out. I'm watching The Handmaid's Tale right now, and I'm in like episode 3, and I'm watching this show, and this show has been touted as like, this is what the left is afraid of. They're afraid of this really authoritarian military society where women are kept down. You have these different levels of society. The women at the top are very prudish. They dress very, almost like Stepford wife plus cult wife. They've got like, they're beautiful, but they've got the high necked dress and they're kind of covered up. And those women, before the society kind of fell under the power of these awful Christians, of course they're Christians, there was some cultural pressure for women to start covering up and things. And it's the SJWs in our society that are creating that environment. Only like you're supposed to be, I should be allowed to be totally naked and then never be regarded as a sexual being, even though I'm standing there with my boobies out. But don't, if a man even looks at me sideways, they should be crushed. And forget flirting between a man and a woman. That's over already. I mean, could you imagine flirting with a woman at work?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's the idea of like, I think it's very easy to be able to have like interactions without being a total creep, but it's gotten to the point where it's like, it's such a liability and such a risk because of this idea of, screw due process. Let's destroy someone's life just because I say so and I'm feeling, and I'm in a bad mood. And
right.
That's the scariest thing about that. So,
yeah,
I mean,
as a man, that must really freak you out a little bit. Like you can't go to lunch with a woman. You have to be really, really careful. You almost can't have friendships with women at work now. Right?
And I think that you are able to. I think that, people who have like good relationships, I just think you need to make sure that you're keeping things like really polite, right? Just be friends. Just, don't be the kind of person that, makes things raunchy and then, you'll be fine. And so like, I know that's kind of, I think that's how, it should be, but, I think that just being extra careful all of the time, and my main worry is like when you're doing the online dating, it's like, if they have a bad time, it becomes a he said, she said, if she's able to find out, if you are able to find out, that's the scary thing for me. And so I think that it's the new Puritanism.
Back to the day where you can only be set up by people with people like you're gonna have to hire matchmakers.
Yeah.
Because you can't go out with strangers anymore. Or you just have to get married and find out what's in it after you marry it. Arranged marriages.
There was one of these really is an interesting take. I forget where I read it, but like, you know how like the progressives, like you said, it's like basically the new Puritanism, right?
Yeah.
Where it's basically we've come full circle from the hippie movement swung back around to basically new Puritanism. And I do think that like a lot of this progressivism is basically the contradiction behind all of these people that are like allegedly secular and, you know, about all of this.
I love how you said allegedly
is,
secular. That's funny.
Yeah. Their morality is still based in like Judeo-Christian, still based in that morality. So there's this inherent conflict that basically that's treated is how sex is viewed, which I think leads to this like, that's why it's so incredibly volatile, and that's why it's such a trigger point.
These people are for loose sex, and like they run around with vagina costumes, and I mean they're really for sort of this gross, lewd, crude, sexual world, and simultaneously they are for no sex somehow. You know, it's weird. It's weird. And The Handmaid's Tale, when I watch that, and I think this is how they view the right. And like in the show, the people come out, like people are getting shot, the women are just being so mistreated. And it's really a horrible world. And anyone would be appalled. And of course, gays in particular, like they actually, with a straight face, they took a gay female handmaid so she can have babies, so they don't want to kill her or exile her. They want to keep her around because she's fertile, and that's the commodity. So they just did female genital mutilation on her.
Oh my God.
And that's like in episode 3 or 4 or something like that. And I'm thinking, the left has just come out against female genital mutilation if it's done by a Christian. But if it's done by a Muslim, and I've heard them say this, like, well, it's cultural differences, it's religious practice, they actually will sort of defend it.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that, but I would not be surprised. That's horrific.
Yeah. So, but the point is in the show, they're so oblivious to their own contradictions that they are actually showing as this monster, this thing that they actually support. Linda Sarsour is like head of a feminist movement in this country, and she is a Muslim woman who wears a hijab, who supports Sharia law, which includes a lot of that stuff and honor killings and all kinds of stuff. So women, you know, not being regarded as the same as men. And anyway, the left is so screwed up.
Postmodernism at work, right? Like, you know, there can be no truth, and, you know, contradictions are just part of reality. Nothing matters.
That's right. Yeah. Contradictions don't exist, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, let's do headlines. We're I think it's that time, right, Ashley?
Yep, it is. Okay, so our first headline is CVS bans photo manipulation for store beauty brands, will place alert labels on others. CVS Health said Monday that they will ban photo manipulation in-store brand makeup marketing and promotional displays, a move that acknowledges growing awareness to harmful nature of touch-up images. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
To the harmful nature of touch-up images.
Yes.
Okay.
They are the nation's largest drugstore chain and will require other makeup and beauty brands to sell products in their aisles to commit to photo manipulation bans by 2020 or face having alert labels placed on their images.
Alert, alert! This photo is beautiful. Alert! This woman is pretty. Watch out. That can be harmful to your self-esteem.
Yeah.
So are we also going to ban like the food picture takers, like the Big Mac looking like delicious and not disgusting? Like, is that suddenly against the rules? Do we need to like actually completely expose every single product for not being what it is in its marketing materials?
That's food discrimination, you know, having like food that looks better than somebody else's. We wouldn't want to hurt people who have to eat crappy food or who choose to eat crappy food.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Instagram is going to get banned because people on there are just lying all the time.
Filters should be banned. It's ridiculous.
That's what this is, photo manipulation. So you're selling makeup and you can't manipulate the photo. Says CVS, by the way. Obviously, this isn't the government. This is just more cultural deterioration that will eventually lead to government banning stuff. I mean, like, it's inevitable.
It already is.
And I don't even know what to say about this. CVS, screw you.
Well, I mean, isn't it kind of funny? Like, makeup is covering up your face or manipulating your face in some way.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Ashley.
Yeah. Like, you're
buying a product to manipulate your looks. But God forbid we have a photo accompanying it where the model is photo manipulated.
I mean, I feel like the makeup industry, they probably have makeup that can manipulate your face in a way where it looks photoshopped. So I think it's just weird that they're taking that stand. It's
such virtue signaling, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like what we talked about when I did that fat shaming thing. I posted this magazine picture. I was getting a mani-pedi, Mikey. Maybe you didn't hear about this.
No, I didn't.
And I was reading a magazine, and I flip a page, and there's an advertisement for women's, not tampons, but pads for your period. And the picture is this unattractive, obese woman doing yoga. And she's not wearing even clothes that cover her skin. Like, blobs of fat are like
she has
rolling out over her little pants. And it's just ugly. It's gross. I mean, I bet she doesn't even like to look at that, you know? Let's just all be real here. I don't like my fat. I don't want to look at it. I certainly wouldn't want to highlight it, shine a light on it. And that's fine. That's normal. But they want to make us regard. I'm flipping through a fashion magazine, and here's an advertisement selling things to women. And they're basically saying, in your face, I'm going to stick this ugly thing because we're really freaking conscious of, not hurting people, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's exhausting. I'm tired of this whole thing.
Well, I mean, the main problem for me is I think people should, if you're comfortable, you're comfortable. Absolutely. I don't think anyone should look at a model, whether it's, an Under Armour male model or, Victoria's Secret, and feel bad about yourself. I mean, obviously this is a fraction of the percent, but, the fact that that you should feel bad about wanting to manipulate yourself, if you do have a photo, don't use a filter, then do we not use makeup, do we not use wear clothes that fit us well, do we not care about fashion, should we just go around basically naked with no makeup and just so we can expose our real, true, raw, ugly nature. I think it really stems from the idea, their premise of humanity is ugly inherently, and so let's all let's shame anything that is trying to mask or enhance the beauty of your appearance.
Yeah.
To uplift, yeah. And I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, I miss the days when women were a little more real looking. I think they were prettier, back in the 70s. And I think that women with a little flaw is actually kind of sexier and prettier than the sort of Kim Kardashian, over Botoxed, over made up faces and stuff. And I think what we're in is sort of a trend in that sense. And maybe there will be a backlash at some point. It's kind of the Kardashian trend we're in. Mm-hmm. And these things change. They go up and down. And, I miss remember the Bond girls. If you ever watch any old James Bond movies, the women in there, they have a little bit of extra fat maybe here and there. They're not perfect. And their hair isn't perfect and their makeup is you can see flaws in their skin, like a scar from a shot or something like that. That stuff is there in the movies, and all that stuff is gone now. And so I think it's true that women see these things and they think that it's real, and it's not real. It's not possible. It's not attainable. But if you really think that, you really you need to examine or maybe cut yourself off from looking at this stuff, but examine your own sense of yourself and what's important and what's sexy. I mean, like
90% of movies these days are CGI. Like you can't even have a shot like in like a low budget that isn't all touched up by CGI as it is. Yeah. And I think that like, thinking then holding yourself to that standard just seems completely absurd.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And like men don't hold women to that standard. Men don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway. All right. What's the next story?
Sender of Hawaii's false alarm is reassigned but not named. The Hawaiian emergency management employee who set off the statewide panic on Saturday morning by sending out a false alarm about an incoming ballistic missile has been temporarily reassigned, but there are no plans to fire him or identify him publicly, a state official said. The employee, who has been working for the Hawaiian Emergency Management Agency for 10 years, sent the missile alert to cell phones across the state by picking the wrong option on his computer for a routing drill.
Routine drill,
and then confirming his choice, according to Richard Raposa, the agency's public information officer. We're not going to take action until we have all the facts.
They're still looking for facts. Like they know the guy did it. He caused people to think they were going to die for 38 minutes. Like, fire the guy. Really? I mean, I feel kind of bad for him. I'm sure it was a big mistake. But was he high? If there's ever a firing offense, that's it. Just go get another job because you deserve to lose your job when you do that. What he did was so wrong and so negligent and caused so much harm. He should lose his job immediately. I don't know what else you need to know about it. What's my take on that?
And I mean, I think the question is why are there processes so that one person can do that? That's the alarming thing.
From his computer. Like he was just on his laptop.
From his computer that he does on his work computer and can accidentally just press a few buttons. Like, shouldn't something that's that heavy duty go through like at least 1 to 3 rounds of approval or something?
Yeah, let's at least require 2 people to put in their password to log in and have to do that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean, so that's like, obviously it's a catastrophic mistake, but like if it's that easy to do that one guy can just do it inadvertently, that's a horrible process.
Yeah, I agree. So he should be fired and the like person in charge of the whole thing should be fired. It's, both of them are at fault. I think you're right. I think the system is, how could you run an emergency system and not put in controls? And then how could you not fire a guy who does such a thoughtless thing? I mean, I feel sorry for him. Like I said, I'm sure he didn't mean to do it and it was a huge mistake, but you can't cause that kind of damage and keep your job. You just can't. And only a government employee would. So.
Oh yeah, of course. If he worked for a corporation, he would have been fired immediately.
So, yeah. I think that's all our headlines.
Yep, that's it.
That means we're at the end of the show.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Thanks, Mikey, for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
Thank you to all of you out there for listening. If you're enjoying the show, please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Next week, our guest is writer, YouTuber Kira Davis. And apparently she'll show up, I think, because I'm going to be on her podcast, which is called like Not Appropriate or something like that. And what we do is
we watch. For you.
Yeah, exactly. We watch a movie from the 80s or 90s and then talk about how it would never get made today because it's inappropriate.
Oh, fun.
That's fun. Yeah, what a great concept.
Kind of like Mystery Science 3000 with SJW bashing thrown in. So that should be fun. And so because I'm doing that, I'm expecting her to, be more responsible show for my podcast. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.